SS Dorchester, 1 year later, what the North Atlantic hid inside the broken hull. The North Atlantic is not a gentle sea. Its surface may appear calm on some days, but beneath that calm lies a world that never forgets. 1 year after the sinking of SS Dorchester, the ocean had already begun its quiet work. No rescue lights, no human voices, only cold water, endless pressure, and darkness. By early 1944, the Dorchester rested deep beneath the waves. Her broken hull settled into the seabed like a wound that never healed. The exact location was known only to naval records and the sea itself. Above her, storms continued to pass. Below, time slowed. At first glance, the ship no longer looked like a vessel of war or transport. The once painted steel had lost its color, replaced by rust stains that streaked downward like frozen tears. Saltwater had eaten into every seam, every joint, every rivet that once held her together. The bow leaned slightly to one side, twisted from the force of the torpedo impact a year earlier. Metal plates were bent inward, as if crushed by an invisible hand. The explosion that sent the Dorchester down had torn open her side, leaving a jagged scar that the ocean slowly widened. Inside the hull, darkness ruled. The interior compartments were filled with freezing seawater, silent and unmoving. Hallways that once echoed with boots and voices were now narrow tunnels of shadow. Loose cables drifted gently with the current, swaying like underwater vines. 1 year after the sinking, much of the ship's internal structure remained intact, but only barely. Wooden fixtures had begun to rot, weakened by constant exposure to saltwater. Paint peeled from the walls in long, curling strips, revealing bare steel beneath. Bunks were still bolted to the floors. Some lay stacked against walls where the ship had tilted during its descent. Others were bent or broken, crushed by shifting debris. Blankets and fabric, once used for warmth, had dissolved into dark fragments that floated away long ago. Personal items remained scattered across the floors. A helmet rested near a doorway, untouched since the final moments. A boot lay beside it, separated from its owner forever. Metal lockers stood open, their contents long gone or reduced to rusted shapes that no longer resembled what they once were. The ocean does not erase everything at once. It chooses slowly. Cargo holds told their own story. Crates once filled with military supplies had burst open as pressure crushed them. Ammunition boxes lay stacked where they had fallen, now sealed shut by corrosion. Ropes hardened like stone. Wooden pallets collapsed into piles of splinters. Sediment covered the lower decks in a thin gray layer, drifting down grain by grain. Each passing month added another invisible coat, slowly bearing the evidence of human presence. Outside the ship, marine life had already begun to arrive. Small fish darted through openings in the hull. Crabs crawled along rusted beams. Barnacles attached themselves to exposed surfaces, turning steel into living texture. The Dorchester was becoming something new, not a ship, but a reef. Yet despite the life growing around it, the wreck felt heavy. There was no movement inside, no sound, no warmth. The water temperature remained near freezing, preserving some materials while destroying others. Time moved differently here. A single year underwater felt like decades. The North Atlantic pressed down relentlessly. Pressure forced water into every crack. Air pockets that once existed were long gone. The ship no longer breathed. She existed only as an object, slowly surrendering to the sea. From the outside, the Dorchester appeared peaceful. But inside her broken hull, the silence was absolute, a silence filled with memory. And the ocean was just beginning. Inside the hull, secrets the sea keeps. By the second year underwater, the SS Dorchester no longer resembled a place built for people. The sea had claimed her interior spaces completely, reshaping them into something unfamiliar. The corridors were narrower now, not because the ship had shrunk, but because debris had shifted and settled. Fallen beams blocked passageways. Collapsed ceilings created walls of twisted metal. What once were straight lines had become sharp angles and broken paths. Light did not reach inside. Even on the clearest days, only faint traces of blue filtered through open hatches and torn sections of hull. Beyond those points, darkness swallowed everything. The deeper sections of the ship were black lightless, cold, and still. Water currents moved slowly through the wreck, entering through one opening and exiting through another. These currents carried fine particles of sand and silt, which settled on every surface. Desks, tables, and navigation equipment were coated in sediment. In places where officers once stood, only outlines remained. Instruments were frozen in time, their dials unreadable, their glass cracked or clouded. Paper had vanished entirely, dissolved within weeks of the sinking. Metal survived, but it suffered. Rust spread like a disease. It crept along edges, flaked off in layers, and weakened load-bearing structures. Rivets loosened. Joints strained. The hull groaned silently under pressure, though no human could hear it. 1 year later, the damage from the torpedo strike had worsened. The torn section of hull had expanded as metal fatigued. Sharp edges curled outward, exposing deeper compartments to open water. The boundary between inside and outside no longer existed. Marine life explored every opening. Fish moved freely through hallways. Crustaceans nested in corners. The ship provided shelter from predators and currents, turning tragedy into habitat. Yet some spaces remained untouched. Deep within the ship, areas sealed by collapsed structures stayed isolated. These compartments were darker, colder, and eerily preserved. Items trapped inside changed more slowly, protected from strong currents. Boot solace remained recognizable. Metal cups still sat on surfaces. Shadows hid details that cameras might never fully reveal. These sealed areas became time capsules, frozen moments from a single night in history. The ocean floor around the Dorchester told another story. Debris lay scattered in a wide radius. Pieces of railing, fragments of lifeboat equipment, and twisted metal rested half buried in sand. Some objects were already disappearing beneath sediment, while others remained exposed like skeletal remains. Storms above affected everything below. Each major storm stirred currents that shifted debris, uncovered hidden sections, and reburied others. The wreck site was not static, it changed subtly with every passing season. Despite the destruction, the ship remained recognizable. Her outline could still be traced. The length of the hull, the raised bow, the collapsed midsection, all spoke of her original form. But she was no longer a vessel with purpose. She was a place of memory. 1 year after the sinking, the Dorchester had become a silent archive. She held no voices, no movement, no heat, only evidence. Evidence of construction, of impact, of failure, and of time. Nothing inside her told a complete story on its own. But together, the scattered objects, the damaged walls, and the creeping rust formed a narrative that the ocean would preserve in its own way. And the longer she remained untouched, the deeper that story sank into silence. A frozen moment beneath the Atlantic. By the end of the first year underwater, the SS Dorchester was no longer simply wreckage. She'd become a boundary between history and nature, between memory and forgetting. The sea does not mourn, it absorbs. Every month, corrosion advanced deeper into the steel. Every season, sediment added weight. Every storm rearranged fragments of the past. The process was slow, but it was unstoppable. Inside the hull, structural weakness increased. Support beams bowed. Decks sagged slightly. In time, entire sections would collapse, but not yet. 1 year later, the ship still held together, resisting total collapse through sheer mass and depth. This made the Dorchester dangerous. Even in imagination, entering such a wreck meant risk. Loose metal, shifting debris, and collapsing structures turned the interior into a trap. The ocean guarded its prize carefully. No human presence disturbed the site. There were no footprints, no bubbles, no sound. The ship existed in complete isolation, far removed from the world that built her. Surface life moved on. History continued above. Below, the Dorchester waited. Marine growth thickened along exposed surfaces. Barnacles layered over rust. Algae clung to shaded areas. Over time, the ship's outline softened, blending into the seabed. She became harder to distinguish from the ocean floor itself. And yet, something remained powerful about her presence. This was not just a sunken object. It was a moment frozen in place. A single night, held underwater, replaying endlessly without sound or motion. The North Atlantic preserved the Dorchester in fragments never whole, never gone. A year after sinking, the wreck still held secrets. Not secrets of treasure or mystery, but secrets of experience. How metal fails under pressure. How human spaces disappear. How quickly purpose fades when life leaves. The ocean did not destroy her quickly. It took its time. And it still does.